This all comes from a book called Adventures in Pandora's Box, newly published. It's dedicated in part to Ned Ludd, to a woman named Lynn Maynard, to Jay Too Bad, who's making this movie, to Rick Miner, and Diane and Mark Kimsey, Steve Tattersall, John and Kathy Calhoun, and a host of wonderful, wonderful, strange people. The characters in the book include Pandora Robles, who's an artist and an addict, addicted when she was a child accidentally, on her part anyway. Ambrosia, her daughter, Samira Sedigati, a young woman from somewhere besides here, wealthy background, a number of other people, including a boxing coach, a couple of boxers, a owner of the last Piggly Wiggly north of the Mason-Dixon line, and a few other people. Takes place in a small part of a large town known as the district, and this is a part of a short history of the district. The usurpers who came built on and scarified the ground and replaced trees with grains, which they used for feed for themselves and the animals that they began to keep, which were horses and cows and chickens and pigs and others of their own kind, and they increased themselves and their holdings, which they marked off with lines and fences and claimed as their own by right of discovery, strength of arms, and a belief that they were vouchsafed all that was about them by a being they called God, but seemed either loath or unable to define. As always, there are disagreements, and the family that was the strongest and the most willing to murder and steal became premier all round and claimed what amounted to a lordship over all it could reach. This was the Pickett family. And then it goes on to tell how the district was populated. And the book, or the story, starts at the beginning, as it says here in the introduction, the time of Ambrosia, Samira, Robert, and John, in the beginning, in thunder, loud noise, and Pandora's laughter of the decline of the Picketts. You're off. This is a scene in a small restaurant where Ambrosia, Pandora's daughter, is listening to these people in the booth next to her. Ambrosia listens to the two men in the booth, and although she can't hear all the words, she can begin to form a picture of what they are talking about. And from this idle sort of curiosity, her attention begins to focus, and her concentration increases. It is words like cunt and bitch and junkie that begin to clue her in about the topic of their conversation. And when the key word, Pandora, comes up, it's no surprise. Ambrosia listens then with the acuity of one of the government's new snooping bugs, and midway through the conversation she begins to catch the drift and begins to realize that Sam has had something to do with Pandora very recently in a patch of dill somewhere, and that whatever it is probably not in Pandora's interest. Then she hears words like bear and blood and naked and legs, and she rises up from the confines of her booth, a face contorted in a rage that would do her mother proud, surely an avenging angel, surely an avengeress of varieties. Ambrosia charges over the table and over the back of Sam Brown's booth into the middle of his table, facing Sam's companion and recognizing him. She stands, speechless and silent, and stares as Wendell reddens and forces a weak and shoddy grin onto a mottled face. Ambrosia smiles, an ugly smile, an avenger's smile maybe. Maybe the smile of one of those angels looking an hour or so of satisfying playtime. Daddy, Ambrosia ejaculates, oh dearest Daddy, you shit! And she kicks out at him, connecting with his chin and losing her balance, falling backward into Sam Brown, who is too startled to move, and ends up with Ambrosia's interesting cheeks mashed into his face. This scene takes place after Ambrosia has found her mother, who has indeed been raped, And she has gone, left her in Mandy's hands, and gone for a walk. And she's walked around the district, which is a large area, several times all day long. And she's kept walking. It is Pandora she is thinking about as she approaches Mac's alley. As she begins to cross in the front of it, she is distracted by something she sees out of the corner of her eye, a blurred movement to her left, and then she feels the rush of reaching arms that swing out of the shadow of the shoe factory toward her. Ambrosia has always been strong and resilient, and she has always been explosive. It is this last quality more than anything else that saves her. The surprise and shock inherent in the explosion and then the strength behind it. Her attacker, whoever he is clearly not expecting her reaction and is unprepared. The shadows are deep in the alley and dusk is coming on. Ambrosia jumps away from what feels like a rush of air, perceiving large grabbing hands, and is able to deflect the first attempt at her clothing and put some space between her and the hands. But being who she is, she doesn't try to escape. She turns on her attacker instead and lunges forward with both hands outstretched and a chilling scream, a battle cry that would have thrilled her warrior ancestors, all her focus on destruction. 17 years of living the life she has done, coming fearlessly together with one perfect goal, which is to obliterate. The man is big, whoever he is, and strong, and contains her for a moment, pushing her back, but then her lunge and the strength of her legs carry her further forward. Her head pushes upward between the circling arms and his body. Her hands clench at his sides, and her mouth closes on his neck below his ear. Her teeth find the muscle there, and the tendon, her lower jaw clamps, and now it is her attacker who screams. But the sound coming from him reflects pain and fear, not a warrior's rage, and he releases what is left of his grip on her. She pushes backward against him and into the alley, spitting and shaking her head, her hair whipping back and forth wildly, and stumbles, seeing, as she tries to keep her feet, a strange thing begin to happen to the man who came at her, who is holding his neck now with both hands, and who is beginning inexplicably to stumble backward himself as it pulled backward into the shadows of the alley. This scene takes place in the last part of the book when Samira's fallen in love, and she's fallen in love with one of the boxers down at the gym. This is a little scene with her and Ambrosia. Well, it's true, Ambrosia says. What's he like? He seems gentle. Samira pauses, but there are things in him that are not so gentle. His eyes are deep and there is a light in them, and he laughs and he makes me laugh. Oh, you should hear him laugh. And the soft voice that is like some kind of music. He is not American. He is not harsh or tacky. He is a wonderful man and a great boxer too. He is not like what I thought a boxer would be, but he is not professional. He does not want to be. He has a different kind of life. He and the other, she says, John. And then it goes on, they talk a little while, and Samira says, I think I very much want to make love with him. My first time, Ambrosia, and I am so excited. Then her face clouds and she is quiet, staring across the empty room. But Amy, she begins, you're my friend. And she stops, and her voice trails off. Ambrosia is surprised and moved by the words, the simple tone, but she doesn't know what Samira can be leading up to. If she's leading up to anything, she starts to say something, but Samira holds up a hand. I'm not exactly as I seem, she says finally. I do not know how to say this. You aren't, Ambrosia starts and looks pointedly at just about where Samira's crotch is, across from her and hidden by a table. This is almost a coyness on Ambrosia's part, who normally might have come out with something more specific and earthy. Samira hesitates for a moment, not understanding what the look might mean, and then laughs. No, Ambrosia, I have all my parts, and they're all in working order. It is not that. But the humor seems to have loosened her restraints, and she continues thoughtfully. Robert is so beautiful, she says. This goes on for a little bit, and finally Samira decides to take Ambrosia into the restroom. and show Ambrosia her problem. Okay. Sammy, Ambrosia starts, but Samira raises her hand. Please, she says, this is difficult for me, but you are my friend, and I trust you. They are standing in front of wall mirrors, and Samira turns and faces Ambrosia. You see, she says, I like Robert, and I want to be with him, but I do not want to be ugly for him. This makes no sense to Ambrosia, who thinks that Samira is one of the most exotically beautiful young women she has ever seen. She starts to say something, but Samira says please again, and turns her back to Ambrosia. She begins to unbutton the front of her blouse, that same light material that she always wears, and Ambrosia notices once again that there is no bra underneath it. Samira bows her head and begins very slowly to ease her blouse down from her shoulders, and it doesn't take long for Ambrosia to see what she has been hiding. Ambrosia gasps, and an involuntary "oh" escapes her, and then, as the blouse slides farther down Samira's back, "oh" again, and then "oh Jesus." Oh Jesus, the strokes of the lash are there, angry red, against a beautiful skin from shoulder to waist, unchanging. Oh Jesus, Ambrosia says again, what? And Samira turns and looks at her. And she looks at Ambrosia and she says, will Robert think that I am awful? Will he find me shameful and ugly? I want to be with him. Will he want to be with me? She says, and the tears start. I don't know what to do.